I'm June Godfrey, and I'm a member of the committee for the advisory board of Baynard House. We love this old house, and we work to keep it up and to make it a showplace. This is the front porch or the veranda of the Baynard House. It was very typical for the Victorian type house. You'll notice the rail around the banister and the wood all around, and then up above the banister, the fancy woodwork is called gingerbread, something that was very common back in the day when they did a lot of the Victorian style building. The foyer is one of a kind because it has the stained glass around the door and around the front door and the back door. This was a sign of wealth back in 1894 when Baynard House was built. And Mr. Baynard, we call it Baynard House because Michael Baynard built it. He was a very prominent citizen in Auburndale at that time, and he liked to have very nice things around him. So at the time that he built this house, it was one of the nicest and the largest houses in Auburndale. The stairway, you'll know, is original. It was built in 1894. A few of the banister pieces the spindles have been replaced, but the rest of it is built of pine, good heart pine that grew in the local area. It no longer grows here. But at that time it was very plentiful. It was very inexpensive building material. We're now in the front parlor, or would have been the most formal room in the house, and generally what they termed as the men's parlor, because the men would gather here after dinner, particularly when they had guests, and they would have their brandy and their cigars, and as I said, solve the world's problems. It was a very small world back then. The furniture is of the period. It has been donated by the people of Auburndale. This is basically their house. They are the ones, the students at the high school and the teachers and some of the citizens restored this house. Took them 5 years to do it, and it does really belong to the people of Auburndale. This is the back parlor, less formal parlor, or the music room. It would be, again, when they had guests, where the ladies would gather after dinner with their needlework, and again, they solved the problems of the neighborhood and the families around, and kept up on all the latest news. One in every room in the house. The wood, the mantel, the surround, they're all very beautifully done, and they were ordered from Sears Roebuck. They came in on the railroad. There weren't very many skilled craftsmen in Auburndale at the time that the Baynards were building this house, so they got it where they could get it, and that was from Sears Roebuck. It's called a square grand. It's rather rare, very unusual. It was built in Boston, and I can't give you the date because I don't know it. It was donated to the house by Dr. Polk family. It belonged to his wife, and they brought it to Florida when they came to Florida. And when they moved out of their family home, when he retired, they donated it to Baynard House. The dining room, as you'll notice, is quite large, and again, we've got the rich green color in here. The Baynards took their meals here. It was a rather formal room. They obviously had people who worked for them, servants. The table was donated some years ago, and it's not really a dining room table. It's a conference table. Came out of a conference room. The dining room chairs were some that we purchased just a few years ago. We didn't have chairs in here. The silver service there was donated by Mrs. Bowman. She was one of the last owners of this house, and she still lives in the area and still visits when we have an open house. She loves to come and look at, she says, her house. This was the children's room. The Baynards had two daughters, dolls and the wash basin and the light pastel color. This was, as I said, their room. And from these windows, they could see out the back where their stable and their horses were stabled. They only lived here for a few years. They were small, about 5 years old and 7 years old, when the Baynards built this house. And when they moved over to the bigger house, only 13 years later, the girls really did grow up in the other house. The settee there was donated by a lady here in Auburndale, Mrs. Hancock. She was, always has been, very fond of Baynard House. And when she moved out of her family home, she didn't have space for this, so she brought it to Baynard House. This bed is walnut, one of the things that, and very elaborate, very ornate. It was the master bedroom, so that was where the nicest furniture would be. This was a vacuum cleaner before electricity, and it worked on a vacuum in that you pumped it up, and then it sucked the dust and the trash up off the floor. I can't imagine that it was real convenient to use, but it was one of the most modern things they had back in the day.